Jody Schuler grew up wandering these fields near Caledonia, Ontario.
Good puppy dog.
She feels connected to her family here. Disease connects her too. It's become part of her family culture. Generations of Huntington's disease have left a cruel family legacy.
My grandmother, my mom's mom, had Huntington's, and she was sick for as long as I can remember. I remember sitting on her knee when I was really young, and she had a lot of the physical symptoms of the disease, the shakes, uncontrolled movements. Her father had Huntington's, that's where she got it from. And then my mom started to get sick when I was a teenager. I've always known, as long as I can remember, that, you know, there's a possibility that I was going to get this disease. And the more I read about it and the more scientists learned about it, and you know, that they discover the gene, and you know, you have a 50% chance of either getting it or not getting it, and wondering all my life, am I going to get it? Am I not going to get it? Am I?
So any of these in family members?
Yeah, these are just...
Dr. Michael Hayden is a leading Canadian geneticist studying Huntington's disease. It's a genetic brain disorder that usually strikes in midlife. And he believes individuals have a right to choose to know what's coming.
And these two, also pretty high. So this is going to be with a really very early age of onset for those people. And when you ask those people why they want to know because living at risk has been a burden for them. The uncertainty is incapacitating. It's plagued their lives. It's very hard to live at 50% risk. And now we can tell with very high degree of certainty as to when Huntington's disease will manifest, with a very narrow range, a few years range. And that becomes very helpful for people as they plan their future.
Jody's been tested. She knows now. Just like her mother and her grandmother, she has the Huntington's gene. And she's planning for her future. She and her boyfriend Duncan are making wedding plans.
If it's not Huntington's, I could get cancer or any other a bazillion diseases out there. So I don't really think that I'm any different than anyone else. I just have a better idea of what my eventual demise will be.
Aren't you scared?
Yeah, sometimes I'm very scared. That's one thing that is really frustrating for me. I'm happy that I got tested because I am better able to plan. But now it has really affected my relationship with my mom, because before I had the patience of Job with my mom. She could do anything, and I was just like, that's okay, you know. But now that I know, when I'm around her, I just think, oh my God, that's going to happen to me.
So how much do we want to know? What genetic information will we look for? Already in the United States, a test for cystic fibrosis is becoming standard practice before couples decide to have a child. Here in Canada, there's already been a lawsuit for wrongful birth by parents of a Down syndrome child who successfully argued their doctor didn't give them enough information about genetic testing. Who should decide what we need to know? And should there be limits on the choices we can make?
Well, I like to think within a country like Canada that we will have the safeguards in place to make sure that this remains an individual choice.
It's not just your choice. It's not about you. It's about us. It's about who we will agree to have among us. It's about what we want and support in this generation and future generations.
There is no collective view that's going to cover the spectrum of choices that people in this country are going to make. And I think we don't want a prescribed view. The beauty of life is making these choices individually in the context of everything we're living in. And the decisions here are just as significant and need that kind of individual input. We do not want a society that's regulated of a personal individual choice relating to procreation, childbearing, and values that we strongly believe in.
Wolbring believes that whatever the good intentions, one genetic choice will inevitably lead to others. And with society's pressure for perfection, there's no such thing as individual free choice.
Choice is that I know also if I have a disabled child, bingo, there is a support system, bingo. I mean, I'm not by myself. I don't have to deal with prejudice. I don't have to deal with, ridiculously, I know my kid gets accepted by society. Then we can think about choice. Secondly, when we're talking about choices, for what? Then isn't it also then about choice that a woman says, I don't want to have a like a gay kid, if there is ever a gay gene, which so far I don't think is any indication. But I mean, right? But I mean, shouldn't they have then the choice also? Or if they say, I just don't want a female kid, right? I mean, so is the choice therefore absolute, or do we then impose certain limits on so-called choice?
Genetic testing is for a disease. Genetic testing is there to allow people to have choices relative to somebody who's likely to have a disease. Being female or male is not an illness. And the same way is for traits. So height and eye color, people wonder if that would be part of genetic testing. And my answer to that is, again, very straightforward. That's not an illness. That's a trait that we're born with. It's part of our inheritance. But it's not something to which we would want to spend time and resources when there's so much help that's needed for families who suffer from real specific diseases.
I've had numerous people say to me, well, do you plan on having children? Like, you couldn't possibly bring children into this world knowing that they have, a 50% chance of getting this disease. And I'm like, well, yes, I can. And I have every intention of doing it.
You want to have kids?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Jody and Duncan could have prenatal genetic testing, but they've decided against it. They're willing to take on the odds that each of their kids has a 50% chance of getting Huntington's disease. Their hope is in a cure. Huntington's disease slowly eats away at part of the brain with serious mental and physical effects. But in his research, with a growing knowledge about the Huntington's gene, Hayden believes therapy and cure are a realistic hope.
Within 5 years, we think that there will be a new approach to therapy for this illness. This will either be for a known drug, which is focused on a particular mechanism that we understand, or there'll be a new drug in clinical trials.
More than 12 years after the discovery of the cystic fibrosis gene, there's still no cure for Dakota. But genetic testing has given his little brother a much more certain future, and his family a dream to hang on to.
This is a miracle for us in hope to happen. When they found the genome and they discovered that, to be able to define that and say, okay, there is hope here, a very specific hope that they can drive something home. It is very important to us, and allowing people the latitude to do that without generically saying, oh, the genome is wrong, it's cloning. It's a very narrow perspective, and we don't want people to misunderstand how important it is to people like us.
And
I think as far as testing to be able to help or to cure is fine, but nobody should have the power to pick and choose who's going to live and who's going to die, and who's going to be perfect and or to be able to say, like, this one is perfect, this one is not. No, we don't want this one. This one is iffy. You can't do that.
my darling, you build our sweet memories. That is all.
But in fact, we can and already do pick and choose. And soon, routinely, we will have to make genetic choices perhaps more difficult and uncomfortable than those already being made. Where will we draw the line in deciding who will measure up? For The National, I'm Alison Smith.